Life throws curveballs at us every day. Stress at work, unexpected setbacks, or just the exhaustion of trying to keep up. What if I told you resilience isn't something that you're born with? It's built using daily practices. In this episode, we are going to talk about simple resilience practices that will transform your mindset, your energy, and ability to come back from anything. Stick with us. Hey everyone, John here. 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 Welcome to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. I am your host, John Espinosa. Thank you for joining us today. In this episode, we're going to dig into one of our themes for this season, and it's resilience. And in this episode, we are going to discuss 3 science-backed principles that can help you build resilience. One of the first things that comes to mind when I talk about resilience, I remember the time when the restaurant closed. And for some of you who have heard this story, Jen and I worked at a restaurant local here to Oklahoma City, and she was a waitress. I worked the back of the house. I was a cook, did prep, all the things. And I had worked for this restaurant for many years, really since I was 16, and we were probably in our 20s. In this restaurant, it was undergoing some challenging times. Jen and I cleaned the restaurant at night. It was how we paid the mortgage. That cleaning bill was our mortgage payment. And then whatever she would make in tips and I would make in my hourly wage, that went to pay the bills. We worked on a Sunday. And we got to the restaurant Monday morning. I think I was opening and Jen was working that morning as well. So we rode together. And everybody's huddled up at the back door. And I can remember wondering what's going on. Maybe somebody just didn't get here early enough to open the doors. And people were crying. People had their head in their hands. And I knew right then that something was off. Something was different. And there was a sign on the door that basically thanked everybody for their service, thanked everybody for working, and that the restaurant was going to be closed permanently. And I still get a lump in my throat when I talk about this because that was how we made a living. That was 100% of Jen and I income. I didn't know where to turn. I was going to school. Restaurant business was all we knew. That's where Jen and I met. Not at that particular building, but with that restaurant company. And talk about tough. Talk about not knowing where to go next. That was it. And I had to reinvent myself. And Jen had to reinvent herself. And so when we talk about resilience, and I think about what it means to be resilient, I pull back the memories and the feelings and the thoughts that were going through my mind that particular day. And when you think about resilience, you may have a similar situation. So today we are going to discuss some strategies that I've incorporated into my daily routine. And I'm going to challenge you to incorporate at least one of the 3 into your daily routine because I know that it will make a difference. I know from experience, it's not what happens in the long term. It's what happens when nobody's looking. It's what happens every day. And those are the things that have built resilience for me over time. So I want to define resilience before we get into the 3 habits. And resilience for me was the ability to recover from that difficulty in our life. It was overcoming a challenge that now we needed to go figure out and reinvent ourselves. And we became stronger through that process. We didn't see it at that time. We asked ourselves why? Why me? And we could have stayed there. And we did for a while. Trust me, it was tough. Then we decided that We can't allow this to go on. We can't go weeks without income because we had 2 young kids. We had a mouth to feed and we had responsibilities. So we became resilient through that process. So let's dig into the 3 techniques that I want to talk about today. Take out those journals. I don't want this to be a passive podcast. I want you to actively be journaling down or save this episode. Go back and listen to it if you're running on a treadmill or driving a vehicle. Because this episode is going to be life-changing. Because that's what that instance was for me. It changed the course of our lives. And I don't know if I would be here today if that restaurant hadn't closed down. So the first technique that I want to talk about today is your morning routine. And back when the restaurant closed, I didn't have a morning routine. I couldn't afford to have a morning routine. When I'd wake up in the morning, a lot of times it was getting home late in the evening from cleaning the restaurant after hours, making bad decisions that day or making bad decisions that night before, getting up, going to school or studying, going to work, and just trying to stay above water, keep our heads above water, worry about where that next paycheck was going to come from and how we were going to pay those bills. So I didn't have time for a morning routine, and maybe that's where you're at. So write these notes down because there will be a time in your life. Maybe it's not today, but there will be a time. It took me almost 40 years to get to the point where I could sit down and be disciplined enough to have a morning routine. And these are some things that I do, and I've built them in. I didn't all of a sudden one day start these. I've slowly but surely, through what I've read, through coaching, created my morning routine. The very first thing that I do when I get up, my alarm goes off, I get up, and as I'm there laying in bed, waking up, I practice gratitude. 30 to 60 seconds, less than a minute, I repeat to myself, either out loud or in my mind, what I'm grateful for. It could be as simple as, I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my family's health. I'm grateful to have a roof over my head. I'm grateful that today I woke up. I'm grateful that today I get to spend another day with my loved ones. I'm grateful that I get to see my granddaughter. It's always a great day for me. Whatever that is for you, and it can be as big or as little as you want it to be. But what that does is it puts our mind into a positive flow. Versus if you turn off that alarm clock and as you're waking up, you pick up your phone and you begin to scroll social media and we're reacting. Or you open up your inbox and you begin to react. This keeps you proactive. It allows you to recognize the good things. So that's the first thing that I do. Then, after I finish that, less than a minute, I get up, side of the bed, I stretch, and I take some deep breaths. I use the box breathing technique. For those of you that are unfamiliar with that, you inhale for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 4 seconds, and exhale for 4 seconds. It's just a great way to get your chest expanding. Again, you're stretching, you're getting oxygen, calming your heart rate, and you're preparing for the third step. So as you get out of bed, less than 60 to 90 seconds, we're 3 minutes into the day, folks. This doesn't take a lot of time. I normally go into the bathroom, flip on the light, and I turn to the mirror. During that time, I have some positive self-talk. I tell myself, today's going to be a good day. You're a winner. We are going to kick you know what today. Whatever you got to say into that mirror. And Mel Robbins, she'd even say, give yourself a high five. I love it. I love to give and receive high fives. There's just something about a high five that makes you happy. If you haven't read that book, The High Five Habit, go check it out. Whatever that self-talk needs to look like, do it. Be simple. You got this. Again, not long. So we're 5 minutes into the day after you've hit your alarm, and you have already programmed your mind for that day. You have set yourself up for success. What could go wrong? Now, some of you out there, I know, either you're not at the place and time in your life where you can dedicate 5 minutes, and I completely understand. Write it down. I'm going to challenge you to try it, though. Try it a couple days and see what difference it makes in how your outlook is for that particular day. Try it out. So your morning mindset routine is an important part of building that resilience, and you do it daily, remember. This is a habit, less than 5 minutes, that you can accomplish every single day, and it builds that mental resilience to help you come back from any set down that you might have experienced the day before. The second one I want to talk about is reframing challenges. And a lot of this has to do with our mindset. A lot of resiliency comes from how we perceive situations. And that's what this has to do with. When we reframe our thoughts, it allows us to think differently about a situation, no matter how good or how bad that situation may be. So the first technique that I want to introduce is pause and reframe. It allows you to take a mental pause, which brings that self-awareness in, and then reframe that situation. For example, in the morning drive, you're driving to work. Inevitably, somebody is in more of a hurry to get to wherever they're going than you are, and they cut you off, or they stop at that yellow light when you really needed to get through that light. And what happens? You immediately, your blood pressure goes up, your face may even get red, you may even start yelling, or worse yet, throw a finger at somebody. So at that moment, when you recognize that is going to happen, I want you to take a pause. I want you to time out, think differently about that situation. If somebody stopped at a yellow light, maybe it's because they were in an accident crossing an intersection on a yellow light and somebody hit them. Or maybe that person that cut you off, they have to go to the bathroom. Whatever you got to tell yourself and reframe the way that you are thinking, that pause is going to allow you to accomplish that. Try it out. Another technique that I use for reframing challenges is those mini resets. And here's where I'm going with this. I've been in the training industry for a lot of years, and we've trained in excess sometimes of 8 hours a day. What I have found out is people will only comprehend what their booty can withstand. And a lot of times, when somebody is sitting for long periods of time, they are beginning to think about external factors, and they're not listening to anything that you're saying. So hear me out. Maybe you're up there and you are the most energetic, most dynamic, have the best message telling them how they're going to make millions of dollars. But they've been sitting for 2.5 hours while you've been up there. They're not listening to you. I can promise you that. So these mini resets allow for people to get up, take a break, mentally and physically, and allow them to reset. So I always tell people, and I put it on my phone, I set a timer, 60 minutes, 1 hour. I get up and I will walk around the office. Or I will get up when I'm working from home and I'll walk around outside. Just a quick lap, get you up. Or if you got a sit and stand desk, I find those very helpful. Or if you're working on a paper or a project, every 60 to 90 minutes, take a mini reset break. Get up, go get a glass of water. I find this, I have 2 kids with ADHD, and these mini reset breaks go a long way with helping them reset and then go back to concentrating to what they're doing. Try it out. Another way that I like to reframe challenges is journaling. And I do this at the end of the day. I will write in my journal one challenge that I faced that day and how I handled it. So this could be either positive or negative, but what it does is it reframes, it forces me to think about that challenge and maybe how I could have handled it differently or how well I did, and to give myself kudos, pat yourself on the back. We're going to talk about why that's important to celebrate your wins in the third step, but by journaling, this allows you to do that. So reframing our challenges by pausing and reframing our thoughts, by taking those mini reset breaks, and then by journaling one challenge and how we dealt with that challenge a day, builds that momentum and allows us to reflect back and celebrate. So let's talk about the third technique. The third technique is the power of small daily wins. And why is that important for building resiliency? We do not give ourselves enough credit. We beat ourselves up. We're our worst critic. We tell ourselves and we remind ourselves when we fail. But how many times do we celebrate our wins? How many times do we take time to tell ourselves, good job, John, you deserve that? I don't do it enough. One of the things that I have been better at getting accomplished in my day-to-day routine is having just micro habits. And these are those small daily things like my morning routine. It takes less than 5 minutes, not a lot of time, not a lot of effort. But I continue to do that and I'm consistent with that every single day, that it's a win for me. When I accomplish that morning routine, that's a huge win. I celebrate that with a reward of some sort. Maybe it's a movie break. Maybe it's a veg out on the couch and scroll through social media. Whatever your micro habit is, your reward for doing what you needed to do and got done, I'm all for it. Another way that I celebrate small wins is at the end of each day, as I'm journaling that challenge and how I dealt with it, I write down my wins for that day. And again, this could be very small. I accomplished my morning routine. I didn't speak negative all day long. I listened. I became the most interested person, not the most interesting person in my conversations today. Write those down. That way, you begin to see over a week's time all the good things that you have accomplished. And it goes back to the mindset. So a lot of this goes back into feeding and reinforcing our resiliency because it's a process. When that restaurant closed, it was a process to get through that and to get back to a point where I had enough confidence in myself that things were going to be okay. And it started with going and filling out a job application. It started with getting into a career field that I was going to school for. It started with reaching out to my network and asking for help, which the third thing that I want to talk about when it comes to the power of celebrating those small wins and building resiliency is creating a network of people that cheer for you, that are on your side, that no matter how crazy your dream is to go and start something, change a career, open up that flower shop, become president of that association or that Rotary Club or join the school board, run for president of student council or whatever that looks like for you. Get around others that push you and that celebrate you. So connect with others. Surround yourself with people who push you to be the best version of yourself. And I promise you, that is going to help build that mental resiliency that you are going to need, especially when you got to come back or you got to bounce back from a difficult challenge. When we lost everything and the restaurant closed, I lost those friendships that I nurtured all those years I was working in the restaurant. Many of us found different jobs. Many of us still haven't talked to each other since that day. Many of us found our true selves. And we did that through connecting with others. We were forced to get outside of our comfort zone and to go figure out what we really wanted. I hope that you realize that you have the capability to build resiliency. It's going to take some effort and some time to get you through that process, but this too shall pass. And the resiliency that you gain on the other side coming out of this is going to last you a lifetime. And it compounds each time that you face a challenge. Because the restaurant closing wasn't the last challenge, I can promise you that. And that was 20 plus years ago, and I'm still talking about it, and I'm still using that situation whenever hard times come about. I got through that. We did it together, and we came out better for it. I hope this helps somebody today. Go be great. I believe in you. Talk to everyone later. Bye-bye. If you like what you're hearing, do us a favor. Click on that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up or leave a comment. That lets us know that what we are putting out benefits you. If you want additional information or resources or learn how to work with me, head on over to thejohnespinosa.com, because when we become better versions of ourselves, it helps us get others to where they're going. Go be great.